Hello. Today I want to continue with my discussion about when Christ said in his beautiful prayer to the Father on the Mount of Olives, when he said, he asked the Father to keep those whom the Father gave him, to keep them from the evil one. And he said, they are not of this world, even as I am not of this world. And it's from those words of Christ that we get the expression that I'm sure you've heard before, that says we should be that we're in the world but not of the world. So I want to continue today and talk about what that means, to be in the world but not of the world. We need to be saved from the world. But saved from what? Well, perhaps if I can lay it out in a very simple manner for you, it will help you to understand how we become as we are, and why people have compulsions and addictions, and why they can't seem to break loose from bad habits and from people that are not good for them. You see people addicted to all kinds of things, and people that stay with people that are not good for them. See, even who they hate, yet they can't get away from them. So let's talk about it. I'm going to keep it very simple. Animals, like a deer in a forest, the animal has an environment. The deer has an environment, the forest. And there's something about that forest, some mysterious emanations from the forest, some mysterious aura, something in the forest, the plants and the soil and the rocks and the lichen and the moss, and there's something in it, in the moist. There's something there that sustains the deer, that comforts the deer, that reassures the deer, that is the deer's refuge, and that is in which it finds life. It's its environment, and it finds refuge and comfort and support and reinforcement. It needs that environment. It needs it, just as a fish needs its environment. And it's all perfectly natural. That's the way God designed it. Everything has its place, and there are mysterious bondings, even as there are bondings in an atom. There are bondings between the creature and its environment. Well, so what happens to people? Well, we are led into temptation. See, remember in the Lord's Prayer, He teaches us to pray and says, "Lead us not into temptation," or it could better be translated, protect us from being led into temptation. Because we're led into temptation, aren't we? Look around you and see in every group of kids there's one who's no good, making trouble, doing naughty things, and he seems to become the leader and leads the other ones into doing naughty things. We have leaders around us who lead us into temptation. The drug dealers, the naughty people, even the advertisers that want us to buy things that we don't need, people who encourage you to be angry, people who to do something wrong, to spend too much money, anything that is not right, or it is not good for you, is not wholesome, it's not in your own best interests, is not wise. See, people are leading you into it. So you follow, either because of we tend to be gullible when we're not enlightened. And as you go through life, you must learn to become enlightened. You must find out how to become enlightened. But otherwise we're naturally gullible and suggestible. That's our fallen condition. And we also have animal bodies, just like the deer in the forest. We have an animal body. It's similar to the deer's body in that we have to eat and breathe and so on. Okay? what we're born inheriting. But now, can you see that if you are led into temptation, into doing something, see, that's not wise, and you do it for whatever reason, you've been pressured to do it, or seduced to do it, so regardless of why you do it, maybe you're led by a voice, okay? Or you're led by a rotten person. But you may just be gullible, or other people are doing it, so you just do it too. Okay? And of course, there are plenty of liars around to say, well, it's no big deal, don't worry about it, everybody else is doing it, it's perfectly safe, blah, 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 right? But for whatever reason, you just do it. Well, but then what? What has happened is that you have been led into a trauma, into a fall, into a moment. I'm trying to think of the right word. Into an occasion of change, and you left behind one environment. It's spiritual, but then it's also purely physical. And I want you to see how it becomes purely physical. It begins as spiritual in doubting what you know in your heart, and in listening to someone else instead of listening to what you know in your heart, and mindlessly following, even though somehow you have a sense you shouldn't be doing it, or your parents told you not to do it, or whatever. See, so there's a separation from what is right, from what is fair, from what is good. See, from obedience to what you know in your heart, or to what is good, or what your parents told you as they stand in for what's right. You see, represent what's right. They're supposed to. Most parents are a temptation themselves, but that's another story. So you're led into separation from your inner ground of being, and now all you are is an animal. Now you're just an animal body, animal mind, animal brain, and trauma. This new object, this person, this substance, this thing that you're doing, whatever it is, it now becomes the ground of being for this new creature self. You see how that works? You separated from what you had before, and now you are just a creature. You're no longer having the protection, see, of this spiritual source of right, see, to which we're supposed to be bonded by faith. But when we're kids, we're not. Okay, that you have to find faith. You have to find a bonding. See, and a bonding of love and faith. It's a voluntary thing. Then that bonds you. Then you're in the world, but not of the world. See, you become a subject to the heavenly order, which changes you back, and beyond that to something even better. But now there you are, just a creature, an animal. See, and the trauma. So now you become subject to the trauma. You are imprinted by it. You react to it, and it begins to change you. See, now you no longer can pass by that, whatever it was, without noticing it, without remembering it. See, and you begin to notice that it, whatever it is, whether it's a person, whether it's a substance, whether it's an object, or a condition, something you did. See, now it begins to affect you. That place. The place of the trauma, the objects in the trauma scene, the object itself. It becomes your environment. That's your new environment. And then you become subject to it, just as the deer is subject to the forest. You become subject to this new environment. Okay? And then something else kicks in. We're not even talking about the psychology of it right now. We're just talking about the pure biologicalness of it, or physicality of it. So there's the creature subject to its new environment. But there's something else that the environment has, and I alluded to it earlier. I said that the environment has mysterious emanations and that sustain. The forest, remember I said? Something about the forest sustains the deer. reinforces the deer. It has to keep going back to maintain its identity as a deer, and also to some sort of comfort, reassurance. So it's like a refuge. It's where its life is. See? And so now this new thing, whatever it is, it becomes your life. See, whether it's a subset, a place, an institution, often a person. See, some kind of an act, like stealing or something, that involves. Yes, that's right. So that would be more the psychology of it, but the pure physicality of it, it really involves often a substance or people. They begin to have a hold on you. The hold, the bond, remember the hold that the environment has on its creature. See, a creature is not free to roam, to just be anything. It has a certain place, and the environment has a hold on it. See, which is a positive thing. That's the way God designed it. But when you are led into trauma and you fall, then the new environment now has a hold on you. And also, something about it becomes your refuge. And you need it for reinforcement, for comfort, for reinsurance. See, it's your new life. See, could even be an institution, a place of work where you fell. See, when you became resentful, or doubted what you knew in your heart, or where somebody teased you and challenged you, and you became angry. You saw them getting away with something, or you saw them getting ahead, and you made you resentful, and you bound and determined to get even, to prove something. And then you become subject. Your animal self, your physical self, see, becomes subject to that. So you see, so that's called animal magnetism. Anton Mesmer, he was one of the first hypnotists. But it's unfortunate that the idea of animal magnetism became associated with hypnosis. He basically began by talking, even though he did do hypnosis also, he really began by talking about the influence of one body on another. The influence, okay, of one body on another, which we know that when you're around someone, that, see, especially someone naughty. Have you ever noticed how somebody is really naughty, okay, or you think is naughty, see, or maybe even they're not naughty, but they just are like someone that you knew that was naughty, see, or whom you interacted with in a naughty way. Notice the effect that they have upon you, okay, upon your physical self, not to mention psychology. But so that's see, the hold that the watery environment has on the fish and the forest has on the deer. There's something, it's mysterious, but it's real. It's almost palpable. It's called animal magnetism. So that's the hold on your physical self. Okay. Now the psychology of it, which I'm going to save for another video, I guess. But the psychology of it is basically this. Because we have an ego, we don't want to admit we're wrong. We don't want to admit that we're subject to something, that we're slaves of something, that we're hapless addicts of something, or that we're doing something dumb, something foolish, something. We don't want to admit that, so we excuse it, we justify it, we rationalize it. See? To the point that we can make wrong look like right, bad look like good. See? We brag about our drinking binges or our food binges. We brag about our spending too much money. See? We claim that we're doing it because we love it. Well, your animal self does love it. Your animal is addicted to it and needs it as a refuge, an environmental refuge, whether it's smoking a cigarette or whether it's food or whether it's some person or some place. See? Something. Yeah, you do need it. See? But it's a lowly need. It's an acquired need. It's not a natural need. See? plus the feelings, the lust, the awakening of sexual desire. There's something with which you were traumatized. See? Sometimes it's not even your fault. Remember I said that we're led into temptation. Well, you once upon a time when you were younger, you didn't know. You just did what people told you to do, or they did things to you. They did things to you. It wasn't your fault at all. See, just like people acquire cultural habits. They eat a certain food and do certain rituals. Every culture around the world has all these goofy. A lot of them don't even make any sense. Cultural practices. Well, kids, you're raised in that environment, so you just do it. But then, see, you become used to it. And eventually, because of this, mostly because of the psychology, but also to a certain extent the animal magnetism of it. See? Plus the hypnosis. But see, but what I just want to continue, and that is that a lot of times what happened to us when we were kids, we couldn't help it. Undoubtedly, though, you made a mistake. You resented what was done to you. See, the resentment is also a fault. See, it's one thing to be traumatized. See, it's one thing to undergo something, but it's another thing to hate it or to hate the person. See, that's the real trauma. That's the real separation. See, a lot of times people, they fall down, they hurt themselves, or they go through some drought, or they're lost in the desert for 3 days without food or water, and it's very traumatic. Okay, but then they're rescued, and then they're okay. Sometimes it has no effect on them at all. That's the way it should be. Once they make recovery, then forget about it. But if they resent it, like one guy, I heard this story. It's a true story. It's not my story, but I don't know the whole story, but I heard him say it, and I know it's true. That a guy ran from a forest fire. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. If there's a fire, you run from it. But the guy ran from a forest fire, but you know what? He resented the forest fire because it revealed his cowardice. He probably should have rescued someone or something. So he was full of resentment because of his cowardice. He didn't want to see his cowardice. So it became a trauma. So lo and behold, he began to have a real problem with that sort of thing. But anyway, so let us now conclude this video before it gets too long by saying that sometimes not our fault. We're led into temptation. That's why we're supposed to have good leaders that protect us from trauma and from temptation. See, but instead a lot of people neglect us or put us in circumstances where we are traumatized. See, parents leave kids with people that aren't so good, and then what happens? Some kind of trauma. So now you understand this animal magnetism, physical change, then needing the place, the substance, the person involved in that change. Okay? And then, see, some of the trauma we inherit. See, our fallen nature we inherit. See, you're actually born with a fallen nature, which you inherit from your parents all the way back to Adam and Eve. He changed when he was traumatized. See, he changed from the pristine. He could have lived forever. But instead he changed. He became more animal and had to eat and work by the sweat of his brow and then die. And that's what we inherit. But there's the potential. We have the possibility. Unlike animals. Animals, all they can do is live and die. But we have the potential to be changed back. And then to overcome death. What's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word I want. To overcome, see, death. See, and this whole business of animal magnetism and change and subject to the environment and all of those things. My name is Roland.